So on today's episode, a few things. We're going to just do some cleanup on Lars Tiffany and the UVA head coaching story. Had a ton of interest last week, so just kind of maybe a short update or cleanup on that. We'll talk about Princeton and Notre Dame. Obviously, Princeton a dominant national championship run. And then we'll get into the PLL. I think maybe for the fans who are coming over from college and tuning in, we'll just talk a little bit about every team and what we're excited to watch the rest of the season. I want to tee this up to you. So before we get into obviously the main topic, which is the national championship game we just watched, last week's episode was I think our most listened to episode. This Lars Tiffany UVA story has captured the audience. The drama of it seems to have kind of captured the lacrosse world. We talked about a lot of hypothetical, maybe not hypothetical. What I should say is a lot of rumors that were flying around last week about what caused this, and was it parents or players or the AD, what was it? And I know you and I both saw some more reporting coming out of Inside Lacrosse, and I think Matt Nessler, right, is who kind of originally broke the story. They put out a really good post with a lot of detail. So I mean, if you want to take us through that and kind of share your thoughts or what the latest is on what we're hearing out of Charlottesville.
Yeah, I think, the latest is we still don't know what the facts are, right? There hasn't been a credible, I'm not going to say, Matt Nessler or, Terry Ford, incredible sources, but there hasn't been a statement from University of Virginia. There hasn't been a statement from Lars Tiffany, which also muddies the water a little bit, right? Because Twitter was just a shit show. I don't have Twitter anymore, but we do have it for the podcast. And there was a lot of shit flying around. People who know, say that they know Lars Tiffany, they know University of Virginia alumni, they know, there was just so many stories coming out. The Mark Millen thing, him sitting down with the AD was just a very fabricated, not true story. And that seems like it is a not true story at this point in time. To go to think about it, when I played at Salisbury, you played at Loyola, I've never had a parent with a player talking to a coach about his end of the year, debrief or whatever it is. It's usually coach player. So that, when I heard that, I was kind of I don't know that there's no way in hell that can be true. Because you touched on it last week, the AD is the college football, the basketball, they're not going to put too much into that. But stuff that is coming out that seems to have some credibility is Lars, that is believable, is Lars Tiffany and the AD didn't get along. That's something that we could, that's something that we could run with. That happens a lot. ADs and coaches don't get along, and sometimes they got to part ways. So that's something that I think, hearing that, it's more believable moving forward. And then also there's a coach disconnect, right? Cassis and Greco, they didn't get along, mesh well. We're not going to know.
And Schellenberger too.
And Shelley, right? And we're not going to know, I don't think we're going to know anything. The only people that know what's the truth are the players that are in that locker room, the coaching staff, and, it would be nice to have Lars Tiffany make a statement, or somebody at the University of Virginia make a statement and how they parted ways, was it mutual, he stepped down, whatever it may be, because his record, we've talked about it on here multiple times, his record doesn't, warrant him being fired. So there was some other shit that was going on. It'd be nice to hear about it. But I think the Mark Millen thing, go ahead and bury that. That's just not a thing. Because the Twitterverse, there's guys that were on podcasts, there's people yapping at the mouth. They're just just because they might not like him. And I think, he pissed a lot of people off in the club world, and got the guys that were talking seemed like that was, their time to drag him through the mud. But yeah, that doesn't seem very believable. I think the AD thing seems pretty credible and might be the story, but again, we don't know. And you and I aren't we're not Adam Schefter. I don't have with 100% knowledge that that's the case. So I don't know what your take is on it, but it's getting, it's still 2 weeks into it, week and a half. I'm hoping more stuff comes out, and it's going to be interesting who they hire, right? I think that program is at a pivotal point, right? They don't want to lose too many players to transfer portal, and then their recruits right now, right? If Lars Tiffany recruited those kids, how does that work with NIL? Are they going to, new coach comes in, say Chamati comes in, he's going to bring Richmond guys over, those guys are done. It's going to be a very pivotal.
It's a tough. I think the more this story like hangs around, it makes it tougher on the next coach because it seems dysfunctional right now. And so Matt Nessler, it's interesting because I'm looking at this post, right, where it's just like a lot of the kind of details that he and Terry, I think, had a discussion and on their podcast and then put out together. He does provide a lot of details, but he also caveats it like kind of in the same way we are, which is like not a journalist, like not confirmed sources, nobody willing to go on the record, but this is the stuff that I'm hearing. Now, what he has going for him that we didn't, like he broke the story. Like he was the first one who put anything out saying there's going to be like big news is coming, there's going to whatever. So he obviously like does have sources in that program that he's getting information from. And you know, what I found interesting in kind of the stuff that I've seen since we talked last week is just what you said, right? It basically like discredits any idea that the players, you know, the Millens specifically like led some sort of coup. What his latest kind of storyline is likely number one problem was Carla Williams, the AD, and Tiffany's relationship. And he details that basically there was a contract extension on the table. A word on the street is not very good money comparatively to the other programs at that level in college lacrosse.
Yeah, so like, to touch on that, there was like UVA's like $150,000. I thought UVA coach was making like $250 or $300.
Or at least you'd think more. So that came up, and then it was like he didn't sign it originally, and maybe disrespected or something, but wanted to negotiate against it. And then when he was ready to sign it, they had pulled it off the table, and that happened like this year. So I just, again, like that has nothing to do with anything other than like him and the AD from what I can tell. But then he goes into like Schellenberger and Cassis and like I guess the dynamics in the coaching staff and like the lack of trust there, which like I almost hate to talk about a little bit because it's the same thing. It's just like it's a rumor. Without one of those guys saying it, like it's very, very hard to know how true or what the weight of that was. But basically said like if there was any sort of like dysfunction or voices from in the program going to the AD, it was much more likely from the coaching staff, not from the players or parents or whatever. So it was all really interesting the way it came out. I mean, look, the guy won 2 national championships and 3 or 4 ACC championships. And like, no, like when they put out the press release that he was fired, no, like, thank you for an incredible 10 years and all that you've accomplished. Like, no, like really like positive.
Which makes you think it was like something where, you know, they're trugging along the NCAA tournament, they lose, and then it's like, you know, fuck this, or he's out of there, right? He's gone, and there's no, hey, we want you to we know you're parting ways with you. You've done a phenomenal job here. Like, let's have you make a statement. There's none of that. Like, it's still
it goes back to me and it makes you think like there's probably really something broken with him and with the school administration, whether that's Carla personally or just broadly the athletic department. It just seems like there was some serious bridges burned there. So look, to wrap that up, I mean, again, if anybody does, I feel like we're not going to ever get anything more out of this, but I do think that one of the problems with it is I do think it's hurting the coaches coming in behind, because even if it was dysfunctional, even if Carla Williams and like the Virginia brass hated Lars, it looks better to be like, incredible run, thank you for your time and all your contributions, and the program's like, because it's just like you can at least show the next coach coming in like that we get behind these guys. I mean, Lars is widely loved and respected in the lacrosse world. So if you are Shamati or one of these other coaches, and we're saying him because his name continues to kind of come up as maybe he is still in the running, or you're Andy Shea, or you're Kevin Warren, or you're one of these guys that's being considered for this job. And you're looking at this like, like let's use Shamati, for example. Like, yeah, you're at Richmond and you're in the A10, and it's hard to imagine like getting more out of a program than he's gotten. And you got to be looking at UVA thinking I can go compete for championships there. But he, by all accounts, is at a school that has had nothing but financial and emotional support for him and his program. Yeah. And so I'm sure if you're in that situation, you would want to know like what went on and where was the disconnect and why didn't it work? Because if you're going to go take that job, you want to feel like the schools behind you and all that. So yeah, it's kind of a crazy story, man. It's unique to college lacrosse. I mean, look at Corrigan. He just coached in his
35 years, right?
Yeah, it took him 33 years to win a national championship, and like they stuck with him. And Lars is won 2 in 10. It's just kind of like you just don't see this very much, and the lack of information has created this kind of like information wormhole that's a lot of rumors. And I'll just confront it directly too. Like, I know I also am not on social media. We've talked about it. You're off Twitter. Like, I continue to feel for all of the UVA players, the Millen boys in particular, because I just, when we get on here, part of the reason that we wanted to cover pro lacrosse is like a little easier to talk about pro players for me, because it's like you're adults, and it's just like being like 19 or 18 and like getting online, which I'm sure he is, the boys are, and just seeing like people talking about your family or saying that you did something like that, that would be hard. I hope that they're not. I hope, just off of social media is the best move. But I think it's like it is a good reminder of just like, it can be a nasty place. I think people were going pretty hard at those boys, at the Millen boys in particular, and we said it on here last week, like, that sucks. Like, they had a incredible season, like really, really special season as brothers to be, so close to being Tewaaraton finalists, and some people think they should have been, and then like you just have to deal with this. So like I do feel for those kids like in that locker room, because it's the adult's job, man. Like, it's not the kid's job to manage this stuff. Like so they need a leader in there at UVA to get this thing cleaned up and back in the right direction. But I'm sure that they'll be able to figure it out. I mean, it's such an easy school.
I think it's one of the best jobs in the country, right? UVA is an awesome place. Yep. Charlottesville is a great place. So I think I would imagine that job is gonna, draw the attention of some really good candidates, and we've already mentioned them and don't need to go into it, but it's gonna be interesting to see they hire.
All right. So let's talk about the main event here, the national championship game. What was your overall take maybe on just Final Four weekend, the national championship game, Princeton as a champion? What was kind of your, what's your lead off point of view coming out of this?
I was actually, going into the weekend, right, we talked about our picks, like, Duke, Princeton, Cuse, Notre Dame. I think I took Princeton and Cuse. Obviously that didn't happen. But my big takeaway from the weekend was how, like, there wasn't any close games, right? The Duke Princeton game was 14-7. The Notre Dame Syracuse game was 16-11. And then the national championship game, like, that first quarter, it was like, holy shit, this is going to go into overtime. This is going to go into overtime. And then Princeton goes on a 10-0 goal run. And Coach Corrigan had already used his 2 timeouts, and they went on a 8-goal run, and you can't really call timeout to ice it and talk about things, and that kind of sucked for them, I think. But I was really expecting, better fight out of these games. I thought they were going to be closer. They were not. That was my biggest takeaway of the weekend, was just seeing, how open, the big margins of the win and loss was. I thought it was going to be way closer, and it was not. So that was my big takeaway from that.
Agreed. So I won't restate that, because it was a bummer, honestly. Like, it would have been nice to watch a, super competitive overtime game, and we just didn't get that. I think for me, the first thing that came to mind is I do think Coach Madelon, like, look, the best team clearly won, like wire to wire, start to finish. They could win in different ways, but I think what Mads did today with you came out in the game and Notre Dame goes up 3-0, and basically it looks like Notre Dame's athletes, Yago and the other midi, the football kid, looked like they were just going to overwhelm Princeton's defensive midfield, and he just moves into his zone, and Notre Dame had no answers for the zone, and it really exposed the weakness of this Notre Dame team, which I think was like skill. They had the horses, and they've got these football lacrosse dudes, and but like when you were watching them try to play the zone offense, it's like they couldn't throw 3 passes in a row in the box. right? So there was a lot of, I think, criticism to go around on the Notre Dame side of not really having a plan for the zone, because it wasn't like that was the first time Princeton showed it all season. They had kind of come in and out of it. They had clearly mastered it. But if you're not going to dodge a zone, you have to be able to whip the ball around with perfect passes the way like a PLL man-up offense does, where you're carry, throwback, carry, throwback, carry, throwback, skip, catch one more. So like they didn't dodge the zone, right? They played in kind of a set and they tried to move the ball and they couldn't. I mean, they were throwing passes on the wrong side of their body and the wrong side of the hip, and that just completely kills the rhythm, and they're dropping the ball and picking it up. So the switch to the zone defense and just coaching a team the way that he has, that knows how to win in so many different ways. In the semifinals, the kid Charlie Johnson covers, what's his name, who had all the goals today? Why my brain's not working at the end of
Palumbo or Kabiri?
Yeah, Palumbo, and he goes in the semifinals, and he goes, I think, no goals and 2 assists, but he's kind of a ghost. And Kabiri dominates, right? I think he had 3 and 2 in the semis. And then today, Kabiri gets to match up with Light, and Palumbo goes off for 4 and 1. Like they just, and then Stellar played defensively and in the cage and at the faceoff X. Like there was no real weakness from that team. But on top of that, I think they were just coached so well from start to finish to just know how to win in different ways. They could play fast, they could slow it down, they could cover man, they could cover zone. So really, like I think Coach Madelon deserves a ton of credit. He's really likable dude, and I think on the other side, like if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're left kind of, I don't know, maybe wondering a little bit around like where was the backup plan or where was the zone offense? Like did they practice it at all, because they looked lost against that zone today.
It was frustrating because Princeton pressed behind the cage, and they put their 2 short sticks up top, and they really didn't attack the short sticks or the gaps up top, and it was just like they kept attacking from behind the cage, and that's where all the poles are, and it was just really frustrating to watch that. Like to your point, like didn't look like they had a plan, and you shout out Coach Madelon, but another guy that needs a huge shout out is Coach Jim Mitchell, right? I think he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the game, and the game plan they had against Duke, and then clearly they picked Notre Dame's defense apart, which has been like their cornerstone all year. And when you watch Notre Dame play over the last 3-4 years, they're known for their defense. And today they look lost and head spinning, and Princeton had so many freaking opportunities off the ball. And like when Princeton would dodge, draw a slide, like the guy 2 passes away was always moving to the right spot, skip pass. Like it was a freaking masterclass offensively. And I hope, obviously, Jim Mitchell is, interviewed for head coaching jobs at other places, and he's chomping at the bit to do that. But if I was Princeton, I would try to keep him and give him maybe a raise or a bag to retain him there at Princeton. So
yeah, well, good luck. We've I mean, just like we've talked about this, but like the assistant coach pay to head coach pay jump is a big jump. I think it's hard to retain assistants that are up for jobs. But you're right. I mean, he did the crazy thing, and this goes back to your first point, is like there was a very, very clear gap between like Syracuse and Duke and Notre Dame and Princeton to me. And then really like almost Notre Dame and Princeton and everybody else to a certain extent. Like I think in that Syracuse Duke tier, you could throw Richmond, UNC in some ways. There might have been one or other. Penn State maybe was hanging around, but like those were clearly the 2 best teams, and there was clearly a huge gap in between those 2 teams as well. So yeah, it's unfortunate that it wasn't more competitive, but it is what it is. As sports, sometimes that's just how it goes. But I think we were fortunate that we got to see the 2 best teams play, and like Princeton, it's been a long time coming for Mads, for that program, since the magical years of under Bill Tierney. And man, just a lot of great stories on this team, right? The goalies, Pops, with been battling ALS for a long time. They were talking about that. It's a crazy story.
Which goalie?
Princeton's.
Oh, I did not know that. Damn.
Yeah. The broadcasters were talking about that during the game. Something like 13 years or something like that. They didn't share a ton of details, but they just talked about how he's just probably a little more mature than a lot of kids in that stage of life, just based on what he's experienced and how much he's taken from watching his dad fight and all that kind of stuff. They mentioned that at the end of the game. So anyway, it was there was just as there always are in all these teams, like a lot of good storylines. Is this a crazy take though? I left the Final Four weekend thinking that Ben Johnston is the best player in college lacrosse.
Ben Johnson?
Yeah.
I don't
That's
think
the guy, dude.
I don't think you're wrong there. I think he's, in the tournament he showed how good he is and how he can take over games. And I think, Duke being at the stage at the point they were at, I mean, he took over in the Richmond game when they needed goals scored, and anytime they needed, a jump in their offense, he's the one that stepped up. So I don't think you're off there. I think that's somebody that's going to do well in the PLL as well. He's an athlete, can shoot the shit out of the ball, and he has that killer.
Like they had no answer for him, right? When in that semifinal game, like he can shoot righty, he can shoot lefty. I was saying watching the semifinals, he reminds me of Connor Busick. He's just like a bull, but he's fast. He's not necessarily like shifty quick, but he's just fast. He goes downhill and he can kind of use his physicality, and then he can shoot super hard with both hands. So like he really impressed me just as from an individual player standpoint. Again, he's not a Tewaaraton finalist. Like I have no idea who's going to win that award because the Princeton offense reminds me of.
I think it's got to be two. It's two people, right? I think. Like I was gonna ask you this question, but we can kind of get into it now. But like I think, obviously, Tewaaraton should be. It's obviously given to the best player in the country, but like they should, the national championship should have some say in who gets that award if they're up for it, right? Nate Kabiri is a finalist for that. He was 1-3 today. I think he has 85 points on the year. Obviously, I think Joey Spallina and him are one of them are going to get the award. I think it's going to be Joey Spallina. But I think winning a national championship should have some weight in that. So
it should, but this is what the year that my Loyola Hounds won the championship. Our best player the entire season was Mike Sawyer.
Yeah.
And he was a Tewaaraton finalist. And in Final Four weekend and the national championship game, Eric Lusby, who was our second best offensive player,
broke the record,
Yeah, went off.
Yeah.
And then Pete Baum won the Tewaaraton that year. And I think this is a very similar situation where I just think it's hard to give it to Kabiri when Palumbo just won championship game MVP.
Yeah.
And like I just think like the Princeton team was the best team, and it was like really shared. I just talked about it. Kabiri in the semis, Palumbo in the finals, right? We just mentioned it, Croddick, which by the way, Palumbo also beat cancer in high school. Like that, they were talking about that. That's another crazy story. So really, really cool. He also has this like sense of maturity when you see his interviews for like his age, which makes sense when you go through something like that. But like I think because of that, Spallina kind of locked it in. Like I just think Kabiri would have had a day like Palumbo had today, which wouldn't have made sense. Like it didn't make sense for the Princeton offense for that to happen. Like you have the matchup. Like let's attack. Yeah. So that's why they were the best team. But I think that could be probably the thing that maybe prevents him from winning it. That's my. If I had to bet, I'd bet on Spallina. Yeah, for those reasons.
Yeah, and the finalists are Owen Duffy, William Firth. That's no. Nate Kabiri, maybe Sean Light. No, Joey Spallina. Those are your finalists. It's going to be Joey.
It's definitely could be. I think it'll be Spallina 1, Kabiri 2 in the voting. But I think it'll be a healthy Spallina win, which. I'm not mad at that either. Like you go through 4 years at a program like Cuse and you set the points record there. I think I saw like String King has a funny video out about like the shot clock bump and that like you should add 25% to everybody's statistics in the pre-shot clock era. If you haven't seen that, it's a video worth watching.
Sure, Matt Gibson was behind that.
Yeah, the director for sure. There's like Chad Wiedmeyer and Kit Smith are in it, but like it's. There probably some of that plays in, but still, like it's almost like a lifetime achievement award for Joey to some extent at this point. Not that he didn't have a great season because he did, but like, he just showed up for 4 years. He just showed up and produced over and over and over again. And obviously, you don't win a championship, and at Cuse, that's what everybody wants, and that's the expectation, whatever. But like, he's got a lot to be proud of, man. It's not easy to go 4 years with that much consistency, and he's healthy and he's producing year after year after year. And he played great in the quarterfinals to get him back to Final Four weekend. And then they were just outmatched clearly as a team in that game. But I have no qualms with him winning. But like, if you could take the whole, I'm going to restate what I already said, but like if you could take the whole, not have to draft just seniors. If you could take any player in college lacrosse right now and put them on your pro team, I think I would want Ben Johnson. I just think he looked. I mean, he just looks borderline unstoppable. Duke didn't have almost any their offense outside of him was kind of non-existent. Frankly, it was kind of the same thing in the Richmond game. He carried him in that game. Like he's really really impressed me from an individual player standpoint, probably the most. And I think he's a junior, right? So he's got one more year, so he'll be in the Tewaaraton hunt next year, and would be my early pick for being the number one player in the draft next year.
100%.
So what did you think about Charlottesville as the host site?
I thought it was great. I think it's a great venue. It had like Raven Stadium vibes when that, I don't know, it was like the mud game with Tillman Johnson because of the rain. It was like overcast, and the environment looked awesome. A lot of I don't know what that UVA football stadium holds, people in the back of the hill, but those small college venues, I think they're perfect. And it still wasn't filled out, which, you know, the NFL stadiums are just too big. And I think next year it's going to be at Lincoln Financial again. I wish they would just commit to doing it, you know, at, you know, even like you look at Hofstra University during the quarterfinals, that place is shit packed. And, you know, if you do it, you know, at Hopkins or wherever, Bird Stadium in Maryland, Loyola has a great venue. It's like, I think if you have it at those hotbed areas in those college towns, like I think it's just, you know, it looks better on TV, the environment's louder, but I think it's good. I hope they keep experimenting with it, and I hope they bring it back, because the NFL stadiums are not it for me. I don't like the giant venues.
The crowd was better the second game in the semifinals, and then in the championship it was a good crowd. The Princeton crowd was awesome. Like they were pretty cool to see. I think the one issue with Charlottesville is like it's not really close to an airport. You know, and the Final Four is, I mean, I know growing up here in Atlanta, like lacrosse families every year, so many would go up to wherever, Baltimore or Boston, like getting it at that type of venue that is a little easier to get to maybe helps the numbers. But as far as like the aura of the game, I agree. Like that stadium just had great aura. And it's just like the rain and the whole thing. The Princeton jerseys are just like real throwback too. It's just like that part of it was really cool. And I agree. I wish it wasn't. I mean, I think, again, Philly's a great place, but like NFL's empty. And like, even if you put 25, 30,000 people in an NFL stadium, it looks empty. It just doesn't show as well. I would love to see it at Homewood. Like that would probably be my number one pick if we could, you know, to get it somewhere, is just fill up Homewood 15,000. Or you mentioned Bird Stadium, or they used to be at Rutgers back in the day. Like, so I agree. I'd like for them to keep looking for the right spot, but not terrible. My one other, before we move on from the national championship, there's always things about the broadcasters every year that like you got to complain about, right? So I got two things for this year. So one was somebody pointed it out to me and I never noticed it, and now like for the listeners, we have to wait another year. But Kark and Quint have the theory is they have like a silent argument on who gets the last word in before commercial break. And it's like once somebody, I never noticed this, but then once it gets pointed out, hard to unnotice. Like they're going off to commercial and it's like one last point. Oh, one last point. Like as they're leaving, like one of them will just like chime in, because I think that's like, you know, that's the lead analyst role or whatever is that. So something to watch for next year is that little tug of war. And then look, I thought they did a really good job. Sometimes, like I think maybe they have
contract incentive that they get. If he gets the last word in before commercial break, he gets like an extra $1,000.
It seems like there's a little alpha tug of war going on. That's the vibe. I think for like people who watch lacrosse all the time, sometimes the Final Four can be frustrating because they're also trying to kind of speak to a new audience as well, and sometimes they not dumb the game down, but they always compare things to other sports. They like kind of do things to like quote unquote like invite new fans in. I didn't feel as much of that today, but he did make a point. Quint, I think it was, made a point about lacrosse is the only sport where you can attack behind the cage. And I don't know why that bothered me so much, because obviously you go behind the cage in hockey, and it's not like that's some obscure sport. Like it just seemed like a big miss, like only sport besides hockey where you can attack from behind the cage, which then it got us in like in our group text into a little argument about, well, do you really attack from behind in hockey? And like, I'm not a puck guy. I'm a Georgia boy, but you definitely do. Like I know enough to say like it's not, you don't, in hockey nowhere on the ice do you line up one-on-one dodges. Like it's not the same sport as lacrosse, but like the puck getting cycled behind and fed from back to front and wrap around goals and wrap around and kick it across the crease. Like you're more of a hockey guy, right? Like I'm not crazy in saying like that's a wild miss. He mentioned like football or not football. He mentioned basketball. You can't go behind, and he mentioned I don't know, so one other sport. But I was like, as he was saying that, I'm like,
hockey. You can go
hockey is like one of the 4 major sports in America. Like, so anyway, great job, Quint, Kark, whatever. But
and they had like a little moment today too, where he was Kark was like, "Why is Ricciardelli so good low?" And Quint like went into it, and he's like, "Your brother was a starting goalie Hopkins. How come you don't know that or something?" And there was like kind of an awkward silence, and then Anish goes, "Carcaterra's brother was a standout goalie at Johns Hopkins University," and I was like, "Ooh, that was a little awkward."
Ricciardelli was we know we were talking during the game.
Yeah.
He
cheats low a little
Princeton
bit.
found a lot of success high. It felt like he was dipping quite a bit, or like maybe he's just more comfortable low. You know what? I know I've said this now twice. We're going to go on, but the other thing that we should talk about is the women's championship.
I was really going to make a point to bring that up. That was the rules in women's. Like, I have a daughter, you have a daughter. I don't claim to follow women's lacrosse much. I've been watching a lot more of it as of late 'cause I love it. It's exciting, and that game was awesome. And it's a shame it comes down to those. You can't follow through and hit someone with a stick when you're shooting. If you hit somebody with a ball, it's like a foul. Like, I think they need to change that. And I know, I get it. They're only wearing goggles and they're not wearing any like chest protection. So they get hit in the chest. Obviously we've seen people die you can get hit in the chest with a shot. But I think that those rules need to change. They either need to wear helmets or some sort of like, I know we wear those like heart guards now or whatever that thing is, like put those on them. But that those rules are insane. And then Carolina was out of timeouts. The Northwestern girls stepped in the crease.
They couldn't challenge it in the crease.
They couldn't challenge it. It was a shit show towards the end
there. So you're right about all that. The rules are confusing and tough. The girl was in the crease when she scored the goal to go up by 3, which kind of was a sealer. But put all that aside, they put on those two teams put on a show. Like 100%. That is, even despite the rules being tough, that's an easy watch. Those girls are so skilled and so athletic, and like how far the women's game has come from like a stick skill standpoint. Again, knowing just how different their sticks are. Like when I watch that game, I'm just like, holy shit! Like the way they move the ball and move off ball and cut and despite there was these kind of controversial calls and just the rules in general. Like if you're gonna sit down with somebody who's never watched lacrosse, it's a lot harder to watch women's lacrosse and explain stuff like than it is men's. There's so many aspects of their game that's like, okay, there's nuance and you gotta explain it here, and it's like whatever. So I would love to see them. They've added the shot clock, which is great, but like I would love to see that game continue to try to simplify the rules to take out some of the ambiguity or the tough to follow, but the level of play from those two teams and from the girls on the field, and like it kind of similar to the men's. Like you had the best two teams. Like UNC was basically like an unstoppable force, but for whatever reason, it seemed to me, I'm about to get probably ripped by the women's lacrosse meetings. I don't know this well enough, but like it seemed like the draw control was kind of one of the places that Northwestern just like had something that UNC couldn't figure out. I think in both games that Northwestern dominated that aspect, and then they shut off Chloe Humphrey. Like they were just face guarding her the entire time. And UNC's offense never really seemed to, they were kind of going in and out of a zone and then going into this man-to-man where they would press her. They kept her out of a rhythm. So like the UNC was the favorites, I think, the heavy favorites to win the championship. Northwestern deserved tons of credit.
Yeah, Northwestern went up 3-0. Carolina comes back like that. Yeah, the game was awesome. And also
back and forth.
Michael Wilbon, he's a Northwestern alumni from Pardon the Interruption on ESPN. He has that show. He was there. They interviewed him. He was talking about the environment at Northwestern. It was a really cool environment. It was packed.
Sick stadium. They should hold the men's one there. That stadium's like on the water. That stadium was sick.
Yeah,
really cool.
Shout out women's lacrosse. Get those rules fixed because it's a mess. So
and the WLL is doing that, right? Like they're playing like 10-on-10, like what kind of looks more like the men's rules. Which again, it's not to say like I think it's okay for the games to be different, like they are inherently different, but I do think for both sports, like it's no different for the men's. And I think professional lacrosse has done a great job of like trying to bridge this gap. Like you want the game to be as simple to understand as possible. Like look at, football is the only bad example of this because obviously football is super complicated. But like if you're trying to grow a sport, it's like put ball in net. Like there shouldn't, if something looks like it's a foul, it's a foul. If it doesn't look like a foul, it's not a foul. Like it should, it's like you should strive for that sort of setup because it just makes it easier to follow, invites more fans in and all that kind of stuff. So cool. Awesome. All right, man. Well, that's the end of the college season. So we'll be back next February. All the games will be streaming.
We'll know what we're talking about.
We'll be annoyed. I won't watch any of them. Yeah, but this month of May for college lacrosse sure is fun. Games on ESPN and best teams playing. So,
and the only time we'll talk about college probably in the summer is when they announce the new coaching, when they fill the coaching roles at University of Virginia.
Yeah,
so.
We'll revisit it again. Andy Shea still. Again, the Shamati loop seems to be coming back around. Andy Shea is still my front runner. For people who don't know, I played for Coach Shamati, so I'm very biased. That's where the Richmond fandom comes from and all that. He was one of our assistants at Loyola, and I love him. I love him at Richmond because they're just such a cool underdog story, and I feel like he can do there what we did at Loyola. Like I believe he could win a championship there. And I actually don't think they were that far off this year. Like Duke, they played Duke very well. You're in the Final Four. Now, were they going to beat this Princeton team? No. But, like, the thing is like they're in the A-Sun or something, A-10, and it's just, like, I don't know. I want him to do whatever he wants to do, but there is part of me that's like, have you gotten everything you can out of that program? And is it now time to go give yourself a chance to, compete? And okay, actually, this is the point I wanted to make. This is where being at Richmond kind of screws him and that team. They end up with the 4 seed, not the 3 seed, despite being whatever they were, 16-1. And if you look at their non-conference schedule, Virginia, Georgetown, Notre Dame, like they played the big dogs. Like every non-conference game was big time opponent. And they lost one of those to Notre Dame, who was number 2 in the country. They were number 1 at that point or whatever. They beat all the rest of them. They beat UVA. They beat Georgetown as a tournament team. And they still don't get the 3 seed that UNC gets. They get the 4 seed. Now they have to play Duke in the first round where it's kind of a toss-up game. Like that's the problem with coaching there versus going to an ACC school where if you have a great team, you put together a great season. Like look at Princeton and Notre Dame. Like Princeton got challenged in the quarterfinals, but like the path to the Final Four weekend is a lot less stressful for those teams. So to me, that's almost like if you're Shamati, it's like, I don't know what else I could have done because if they're a 3 seed, they're in the Final Four. I think they beat Cuse. So like if they're in UNC spot and then like you make the Final Four at Richmond, what does that do for recruiting? What does that do for the next 5-6? Like it's the biggest stage, but it's so hard to do that. You're basically telling them you have to go undefeated to get a top 2 or 3 seed. They almost did that. So anyway, I digress, but it did put it in my head that like I sure wouldn't blame him for taking the UVA job if he has that opportunity. Like this season to me like kind of proves like you're just, it's not really because of the job you've done or the quality of your players, because their players are fucking awesome. It's just they're limited in terms of like playing in that conference, what you can really accomplish, I think, in recruiting, but also in seeding and things like that. So he seems to be the hot name. Andy Shea is the other name that I continue to hear brought up. Maybe somebody else is in the running, but those are the two that it sounds to me are the kind of the quote unquote finalists for that job. But I guess we'll find out. Who knows? Unsubstantiated, unconfirmed reports out of me there.
Yep.
All right. So we talked before the episode, we obviously recapped week 2. Maybe a lot of lacrosse fans who are paying attention to college lacrosse now kind of tuning into the PLL rather than go through and preview these games where we have no idea what the hell is going to happen, because if you've been paying attention in this league, it's literally impossible to predict.
Everyone's 1-1.
Is completely different. Every team's 1-1. A lot of them have looked terrible or really good, and it's like, so that kind of led us, I think, to thinking about like, let's just go through each team for maybe for fans, but also for people who haven't watched the first 2 weeks of PLL, and talk about like, what is the thing that you trust most about that team, and what's like your biggest question mark or concern for that team, because I think that's the 101. Every team's got a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde in them. So maybe we can just talk about some of that, and then we'll wrap up here for the night. So I've got the games up, so I can just go in order if that works. Based on they're playing at Ridley. Shout out Loyola. In Baltimore this weekend. The first game Friday night, 6 p.m.
I wonder why they switched. What happened to Homewood? I didn't know that.
I don't know. Yeah, they're at Ridley this year. Dang. So wanted to be in a stadium that has recent banners,
Scott, where's the place to go around Ridley for the listeners to get a meal?
They've got a good tailgate situation at Ridley. So if you're going to the game, you should go tailgate up there. I don't know, dude. It's Baltimore. I mean, you probably hang out like Canton or like there's not really like so Ridley is like on a hill behind a police station, like not really close to like much. It's off campus. It's not in the middle of Loyola's campus. So it's a sick stadium, but you're kind of like tailgate yourself, or if you're going to the Saturday day games, you could go to like Roland Park Bagel, or there's some stuff right in there. I forget what's the name of that. Mount Washington Tavern. Is right over there. That's a legendary spot. Go have some beers there before or after the game. So, all right. So Boston Cannons, the King Jekyll and Hyde team. They looked not great. And then the next night, they looked like the greatest team in the history of lacrosse. Yeah, they looked terrible. We discussed they bench Asher Nolting. That's obviously not the only thing that happens. And then the next night they come out and they have a crazy good performance. So talk to me about that. Maybe let's just switch off. You take the Cannons, I'll take the next one. We'll just go back and forth. But what is the strength of the Cannons? What do you trust the most about this Cannons team? And then what is your biggest concern? If they're going to fail, why are they going to fail?
Yeah, I think the glaring thing for them is obviously the pieces they have offensively. That's the thing I'm trusting on this team. They have obviously weapons all over the field. Weissire looked to get dialed in the second game. Mac takes pressure off Matt Campbell. Marcus was going. BK at X. Obviously, teams didn't know too much about him coming in. They'll probably have a game plan for him. Obviously, the Whip Snakes defense is really good, but I think their offense is something to I think they're number one in the league and the categories offensively, and I would be worried. The thing that I'm worried about the most with the Cannons, if I have to pick one thing, is the goalie play. Right, Kirst was phenomenal last game, and when he is saving the ball and seeing the ball well, that defense is dialed in, and that puts them in a position to win pretty much every game that they're playing in. He's capable of playing those games, but we have seen over the last 2 years he's kind of been up and down a little bit. He is capable of having the games that he had against the Water Dogs. So that'd be the biggest thing for me to watch moving forward with the Cannons is how he's playing, right? If he's playing lights out, I mean, they're going to be in position to win every single game that they're in. So yeah, the offense for me is probably their best thing right now. And then if I had to pick one thing apart for them, it would be the goalie play and having him be consistent, because when he's consistent, they're a completely different team. So
yeah, good point. And that was really the story of their week one. Colin, game one, didn't have a great game at all. Kind of looks like the defense in general doesn't have a great game, but the whole team's kind of just out of sync. And then game two, he was like 90% in the first half and finished the game, I think, just shy of 80. And, they absolutely smoked.
Yeah, they're in the top. You look at the categories, like every position, they're in the top three of every team: offensive, defensive, face-off.
Yeah,
goalie's the last.
But it's a good point, but it's also it's hard because they won a game 17-4,
too early,
which is a little bit of a probably not the normal, right? So it might be somewhat inflated. I think other things just to watch is I think it's going to be interesting to figure out who settles in defensively for them, because they've got Will Donovan coming in from Notre Dame, who was a 4-time All-American or whatever. Rawl clearly has the LSM spot locked out. I think he's been the bright spot for them.
Yes.
But then Remy Reynolds has been really good. Yeah. They also have the kid Hunter Smith coming from Richmond.
He's playing. He's going to play this weekend.
So I think
Donovan sits a week after college.
Yeah. And then maybe Donovan becomes the backup LSM, and Keelty, Owen Grant, and Hunter Smith settle in. But Remy has played so well, it's just it's hard. He's done a lot to earn a look, but
that's this league.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? So all right, so the next team is the Maryland Whip Snakes. So Look, I'll be just really direct. The thing that I trust most about them is Aiden Carroll. Like I don't think what we've seen here is a flash in the pan. For me, with him, it was the performance he put on at Georgetown in the NCAA tournament, where he just had this alpha, give me the fucking ball and let me go, energy about him that was so impressive. And then he comes out, he has a really good rookie season, and now this year he looks like he could be an MVP guy. He's doing it playing midfield, which gives them, which is so good for them because it allows them to kind of keep, the fact that him and Brandow have found success at midfield allows them to not have kind of this weird position thing. Like you have room for Malone and Rob and Spallina and like whatever. So like the fact that he's been so productive out of the midfield, it's Schreiber-esque. It's more goals than Tom is obviously more of an assist guy. So maybe Matt Campbell the last couple of years is like a better comparison, but he looks like that kind of talent. I don't think that's going anywhere. So I think they've got a guy here. I think they've got a guy who looks like the front runner for midfielder of the year and maybe MVP. And I really trust that. The question mark for me with them is the face-off X. So I could mention goalie. I still trust their defense until they've proved me otherwise. Dunmuller, Ajax, I believe those guys can show up when they need to. They were great week 2. LaSalle had 3 goals last game. And I think that is a nice to have. Like if you're not winning face-offs, but you're putting up points, that helps. But I worry about him not having 3 goals. I think he was only like 40% or something.
Yep,
so if you take away those 3 goals, that's something that, again, I think with the shot clock, it's less of a burden than it used to be at the face-off X. But you've got to be competitive there. Like it's going to be hard to beat the Atlas. It's going to be hard to beat teams with offenses like the Cannons or the Water Dogs or the Outlaws if you have the ball half as much and you're giving their offenses that many more touches. Yeah. So, can they hang in there in the possession battle? Can LaSalle figure out a way to, again, you don't have to get to 60, but like on the season, hover around 50, and against Trevor, hover around 43. It's like that's kind of like what you got to do, I think, or else. It just makes it really hard for your offense to get any sort of rhythm, to get the ball to Aiden Carroll enough in that game. So those are kind of the things for me with the Whip Snakes. But I've been on it, man. The youth movement there, led by Brandow and Carroll, and then Malone, who hasn't really gotten going this year, but I assume will, and Brad Smith, and I think offensively there's a lot to like about them.
Emmett Carroll between the pipes, 60% save percentage. He's been great for them. He's going to have to be great for them because you touched on it at the face-off. Like they're going to be on defense a lot this year. It'd be interesting to see what they do this week with Billy Dwan. I mean, their defense is Matt Dunn, Zappatello.
I don't see him cracking. I think anybody that's going to crack that lineup. So that's actually another position that I probably could have called out as a watch out. Maybe I'll let's do this. I'm going to adjust my answer. It's our podcast. I can do whatever I want, right? So the let's call it the rope unit as a whole. So the face-off, the LSM, the D-middies. I don't know if they've got the athleticism there that the top teams have, right? And Colin Squires was had been really coming along, not be great, but really good LSM, and he's out. So I think they're looking for the guy there. So maybe you stick a Billy Dwan there. He's got some skill, but I don't think you mess with.
He can't play up.
Ajax
I don't think he can play up top, man. I really don't.
I don't either. But there was another. He's not a Canadian, but there was another lefty defenseman, Cam Wires, out of Loyola, who was a close D guy who did really well for the Archers playing LSM. I don't know, young legs. He scored. I saw something. He had 30 career points at Syracuse, which is the most ever by a long pole there, something like that. So he not that that's the whole position. You've got to be able to move your feet and play defense up top, but he is comfortable in the middle of the field. So I don't know. Let's see.
Ajax is probably their most athletic guy that could.
Yeah, but he's covering Shelley. He's their number one cover guy. So I don't think that he goes anywhere. And I just don't see how, until they give you a reason, I don't see how you bench Mueller would be the one. You're not going to bench Dunn.
Yeah. So and is Spallina is Spallina? Are they going to play Spallina this week? Or are they going to just bring him? They might just bring those two to practice to get their feet wet, and then maybe the following week. But I think Joey could get inserted in this lineup. It looks like they're preparing for him to come.
Yeah, I bet he's in an attack. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's keep it going here. So the New York Atlas. What do you like about the Atlas? A lot to pick from there. What do you trust about them, and what's the concern?
With them, I think last game that was not a good showing. I think they need Jeff Teat back. They're and we said this. We were like, are we panicking with this team? No, we're not panicking with this team. They get Trevor Baptiste back, so when they are winning 80% of the draws, that offense is going to be firing, and that's going to take a ton of pressure off the defense, right? They're on defense a lot in the Whip Snakes game, and they just looked, it just didn't look great for them. So they're going to get some of their players back. I think we touched on this. Teat has to sit another week, I think, on the PUP list. So
no, I think I was wrong about that. Our research department came back to me late, but they came back to me, and not Mills for what it's worth. Our league research department, and they said that. No, there's no set amount of time on the PUP list. You can be taken off the PUP list at any point. So so we don't know when he'll be back, but he does not have to sit another week.
Yeah, and their defense looked kind of not great last week, but they get Danny Logan back, Danny Logan, Krevsky up top, the short stick D midi position. They're gonna be solid on defense. But if I had to pick one thing with them, I'm not really worried about their offense, especially with Trevor Baptiste getting the ball. I am worried about the defense and being consistent back there. Rexroad, Makar, and who was their third pole they were playing?
Good question.
Yeah, I don't even know. But the consistency on that back end, obviously Liam Entenmann has proven he's probably one of the best goalies in the league next to Blaze Reardon. They have that to bail them out, but consistency on the D end, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this defense looks like this next week, looking against the Outlaws when they get their guys back that are going to be playing all year. So I think Jeff Teat's a big piece. Once he's back in that lineup, he's obviously showed he's an MVP in this league. So him, Schellenberger, and Dixon have been a crazy attack unit, one of the best in the league. So I'm not too worried about that offense. Defense would be where I would probably draw my questions.
All right, so next team is the Outlaws. I'm gonna take a left turn because you could literally pick any player on the Outlaws offense, or you could pick their offense as a whole. I'm gonna tell you
this week.
The thing that I trust the most about this team is their head coach. I think that Sudo is so good. I really do. And he hasn't won a championship, but he's been on the precipice.
Is he the Corrigan of Pro Lacrosse? How long?
Look, here, I'm going to articulate. And again, this isn't I do trust Brennan and Cab and Bernhardt. And there's a lot about this team I trust.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say Sudo because every team that he's had develops a very distinct personality. He had that on the Rats, right? We were competing. The Rats had, you kind of always knew who they were. They had a personality to their team. I think he's very, very good at cultivating a close locker room and bringing people in that fit the personality of their team. I think you saw it with, they pick up Plunkett out of Army, who maybe isn't who you thought was going to go fourth overall, but clearly there's something that Sudo sees and likes that is a fit. And I think he's exceptional at that. And I think when he inherited when he inherited this team, it's taken him a little while to get it to be his kind of image. And I think this team is. And I think they were, good enough to win a championship last year. I think they're good enough to win a championship again this year. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for the culture. And he had some, Manley was on the Rats teams with him. He had some carryover in this locker room from that. But now he's found a new generation of guys that fit the same kind of mold. It's very upstate New York. It's very kind of understated, tough type of personality that he, that he seems to cultivate. So I don't know him super well, and I never played for him, but I just admire him from afar as a coach. I think he does a really, really good job of it, which in pro lacrosse, I'd argue is more important than the X's and O's stuff. The players are going to play and make the plays, and you got a million guys out there that know the game and can figure that out. But getting the right mix of people together is half the battle, and I think he does that as well as anybody that's ever coached in pro lacrosse, frankly. So I'm gonna give him the shout out there. I think again it's hard with this team on question marks because they really are just so loaded top to bottom. I think the close D for me, they obviously Bernhardt retires and they, so They add Ben Randall, right? Kind of replaces him. You have JT Giles Harris, who's up for Defensive Player of the Year. Mike Manley, like up to this point, has not shown that he's lost a step, but he's obviously on the older side. You get some of these teams like the Water Dogs and the Atlas that can dodge you with multiple people. I love their LSM Pacino. I love Tarafanko at D midi. So, but like does the close D have? Is Ben Randall the number 2 cover guy? I think that kind of hurt them last year against the Atlas, right? Like with Bernhardt and Manley, it just felt like there's, you have 2 kind of veteran, probably at this stage of their career, are a little more toward off-ball presence. I think you kind of one of those guys, but you need 2 that can cover. Is Ben Randall still that guy? He has been, but is he still that guy? That may be like I'm reaching here, Hartsey, because like I don't really like. There's not a ton of weaknesses. Like it's kind of like the Atlas. Like you can kind of pick one, but like the reality is, until they start struggling for weeks on end with all their players, like I just don't. It's hard to kind of point out a weakness on that team. Is there anything that you see there that I'm missing that you did?
No, I mean Geddes was in transition. He looked freaking awesome. I think he had 2 goals in the game. We're this segment we're doing, we're trying to find where you got to call out what
because Weirman, you could go face off, but like Weirman kind of is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
LaSala needs to be like Weirman's not a 60% guy, but he's like tough as nails. He seems to do well against Trevor. He's like one of the only guys that like hangs around 50 with Trevor, and he's just kind of like he has that same Nardella factor too, where it's like he just feels like when you need one, he wins it. Like it's like the timeliness of his face-off wins seems to be really good. So like I don't even really worry about him that much. Like is he Trevor? Is he going to compete for face-off guy of the year? Probably not. But I think he kind of gives you
he scraps
enough
he scraps,
that position.
he loses it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. They don't have too many holes, and I guess obviously Pat Cavanaugh coming back. Their biggest question is what do they do with Logan Wisnowski? Is Jared Bernhardt going to come back out of the box? Like because he's looked pretty good playing with Jared because obviously they played at Maryland together. But yeah, they got some decisions moving forward. But yeah, not too many holes to poke in that team. I think they're going to be there towards the end. So
agreed. All right, so we got I think 3 teams left. We'll try to rip through these. You're up here on the Archers.
The Archers. I think the biggest thing for me with the Archers is offense, right? I don't know who the hell is going to step up for them. You look at their roster. Connor Fields is always one of their best players. He has 5 points. Sam King, 5 points. Sophomore, obviously his rookie campaign last year. Mac O'Keefe, disappointing. Hasn't really been who he was 2 years ago. Every time he caught the ball, you were like, he catches it, and it's like, okay, this is going to go in the back of the net, right? He has not had that. I don't know what's going on with him. That is a thing to look for moving forward. Their biggest midfield production, right? Ryan Steins, 5 points. Giancola, 3 points. Ryan Ambler, 1 point. And then it is goose eggs all the way down the board after that. So their offense really worries me. No one out of their midfield scares me at all. As if I was a D coordinator prepping for this team, where's Grant Ament? Where is Tom Schreiber? Are they going to come back?
I think you could almost say health to some extent because Grant and Tom are 2 obviously big pieces that we don't really know if they're going to be back or not.
And their defense, right? They got freaking an insane stable of D middies. They get Aiden McGuire. We'll see if he's worth a first round pick when he steps on the field. And then they get Dobson's coming back, right? So their defense, I think, is going to be solid. They have one of the best D coordinators, probably the best D coordinator in the game, in Tony Resch. So he's going to be dialed in back there. The biggest thing that scares me with this team is offensively.
Yeah,
and if
they were dead last, I think. Dead last in the league last year on offense. And they went and picked a D midi with the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Yes, so we'll see what happens with that. But you got to pick. I think the Archers are an easy one. It's the offense for sure. And then, Sisselberger, it's his first year back. He's been kind of, he's at 50% right now. Is he going to get to where he was when they won the championship?
So what do you trust then most about them?
Their defense.
What's the best part of the Archers? Just the defense as a whole? Because
I
would even argue there, like Graham Hossack, was obviously the stalwart of that defense, and he's not playing this year.
Yeah. The Dunham kid looks really good, man. He leads the team in college turnovers with 8. I mean, he's a big, rangy. He looked good week 1. I didn't know who the hell he was, and he played. He was like D-twigging people. I'm like, that guy's pretty good. So him, Lavelle.
I'm with you. If I were going to argue at all with you, I would just say it's Dobson in particular now with Graham gone. Dobson's like 2-time champion, goalie of the year.
Yeah.
You know, he's not one of these other guys where it's like that we're talking about Kirst or Carroll or whoever, where it's like, well, it looks really good, but like with Brett, like we've seen it enough to just know, you kind of know what you're going to get from him. And again, I think last year they had, in the regular season, they had the worst scoring offense and the best scoring defense in the league. Yeah. Yes, you lose Hasek, but again, the rest of the stable's back. Their D-middies are really good. So all valid points there for sure.
Yep.
All right, so I'll cover the chaos, and then you can get the water dogs. So look, it's really easy. The chaos, it's been the same thing for, it feels like a decade. It's not been a decade. It's been 5 years or something of this. But like the Blaze and the close D, it just like it's same old shit. I mean, Jared Newman can win a one-on-one matchup against big physical Dodgers. He does it over and over and over again. Jack Rowlett can cover a different style of one-on-one Dodger than Newman. Like those two together as a combo are so well paired. Blaze probably the best pro goalie of all time, or right there, in that conversation if he's not already solidified that. And now I think Liam Burns is the perfect number 3 to put next to Rowlett and Newman, because you have a cover guy who presses out and can cover quick players, and throws a ton of checks and takeaways. You've got a cover guy who can guard big, physical, right, type of guys. And then now you have kind of a quarterback inside guy, really good off the ball, really good off the ground. Like, I love the makeup of their close D. I love Blaze. That's easily the thing I trust the most. Look, I think offensively, specifically it's the midfield. So like Eicher has given us a lot at attack. He's doing it again this year. He did it all last year at Army. Like I'm starting to trust him. Owen Hiltz was incredible in indoor, was incredible in outdoor as a rookie. Like I don't hate their attack, right? Like and now they've got the other Army kid back. Sorry,
Colombo too on the left side with Hiltz is going to be interesting to see what they do with him for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. But who's at X for the Nick Turn, right?
Nick
at
Turn,
X has come out and had 2 good games. So like I think they have a competitive attack. Their midfield is where I have concerns. So you do mention Palumbo. I don't want to look. I'm not going to say anything about Palumbo because he just had an incredible incredible day, and he was awesome, and he has a crazy story. Let's see. I always worry about guys coming into the league that I'm not completely sure if they're like big time dodging threats.
Are they gonna be drinking? Are they gonna be drinking at Princeton this week?
Well, he's definitely not gonna play next weekend. But but that would be my worry with him is like, is he gonna be able to run by shorties consistently? Like he's a shooter, right? Yeah. And he ran by shorties today, but it's different in the in the league. So let's see. But he's obviously probably gonna have a few weeks off here. But the Knobloch is like the kind of the top guy. And I like Ross Scott as like a second option, but Knobloch is just like I get so frustrated when I watch him because he does certain things that make it look like he should be the best mid in the league. Like he snaps the ball with both hands on the run, shoots it hard as shit, puts it right in the corner. He's quick, he breaks people off as a Dodger. But then you look at his stat line at the end of the game, it'll be like 2 goals, no assists, 4 turnovers or something. It's like he doesn't I don't know if he's a great feeder. Sometimes it feels like the ball sticks in his stick too long or he dodges himself into trouble. It doesn't seem like he gets as much out of the skill set that he has to consistently. Again, he pops on occasion, but he doesn't consistently show up and deliver the way a top midfielder, an Aiden Carroll or Tom Schreiber, I haven't seen that from him. Right? He doesn't consistently hit 2s. He clearly shoots it hard enough to hit 2s, but I'm waiting for him to take ownership of that number 1 midi position. And I think it's really hard to win if you don't have that guy, if you don't have a Campbell or a Tom, or somebody out of the midfield that is clearly, it was for the Outlaws last year. It was Bernhardt. It looks like on the Atlas, Trainer is kind of stepping into that role in a lot of ways. You've got to have somebody that's winning matchups up top and is a big time threat out of the midfield. So that worries me with them. I don't know if they have that guy. That would be the thing that probably would be the biggest question mark for me. So
yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see what if I don't think Palumbo is going to play this week, but they get Owen Hiltz back, and that's going to be huge for them. So
no doubt, I'm excited to watch him to see if he keeps doing what he did last year. So all right, last team, the other crazy Jekyll and Hyde team, the Water Dogs.
So many things I don't trust with this team. Do I have to pick one? One thing that I wouldn't trust is Coach Tierney when they're down, scream at their refs and probably going to get a bench penalty. That'd be probably my number one concern. because he loses his mind when they're down. But I think the thing to worry me with this team, I think Connor, the Milkman, is first in the league in faceoff percentage. Them getting him, I think, was huge. And man, their offense really, their not their attack. They're going to get Curse back, Sowers, and McCardle. But man, their midfield is really worrying me and drawing some question marks for me because, Jack Hanna last game couldn't hit the cage. I think his shooting percentage is pretty low. Connor Kelly has nothing but 2-pointers this year. They're kind of missing that downhill dodger. I know Jack Hanna does do that for him, but a guy, Matt Collinson from Hopkins, I think you're going to see him inserted into this lineup this weekend. You'll get your first look at him. Big, huge kid, can get downhill, probably can win a matchup against a short stick and quite possibly a long pole. We'll see. But the thing that worries me about this team, man, is the defense. Right? Dylan Hess is out. I don't know what his injury is. It seems pretty extensive, and he's going to be out for some time. Witcher didn't play last week. They had Nakai Montgomery and Tate Gallagher as their short stick D middies. They cut Tate Gallagher right after that performance. That was pretty bad as any. So I think their defense, like what's going to happen here with their short stick D middies? Dylan Hess is probably regarded as one of the best D middies in the league. Physical, can run in between the lines. So yeah, I think with them, it's they'll go get Silas Richmond. Maybe they insert him into the lineup, but yeah, there's a lot of question marks on the defensive end, as of last week. And then DeLuca, worst percentage in the league at 45%. That's a question mark. So the defense and the goalie for me is the two biggest ones. That offense I think can produce and will, once they figure it out. But yeah, man, the defense for me is a lot of question marks right now, especially short humidity.
We talked about it. They got rid of Dylan Ward, and it's like, are they going to have another goalie battle now with Sean Byrne? And he was co-national goalie of the year, and
he came in and was making some good saves too in that game. I mean, it was late in the game, but I think you might see him start.
They end up just right back in another goalie battle. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, look, it's with their midfield. To your point, it's kind of the same thing I'm saying with you've got to have consistency. You've got to have at least a guy or two where it's kind of what you're going to get. And the Water Dogs are feast or famine out of the midfield as well. You're right. Connor Kelly is an incredible 2-point threat, but is that kind of all you're getting out of him? And then, Hannah, it's just it's kind of the same thing I'm saying with Knobloch.
Who is their O coordinator? I don't even know who their O coordinator is. But I think with all these attacks,
it's Sheridan.
I don't know him. I don't really know him that well, but you're going to need a guy that can really scheme, and you got a lot of attackmen that are going to be coming out of the box, so it's going to be interesting to see what they look like this week, I think. So
yeah. All right, man. Well, sure. Excited. Loyola Ridley Athletic Complex. Excited to just be now college is done. We'll hopefully get all the rookies coming in, and we can lock in on PLL and kind of get into the dog days of the season, and hopefully start to find a little bit of separation. Every team sitting at 1-1. Let's figure out who the contenders and who the pretenders are. I think that'll happen over these next, the next month really, I think. But I don't want to make any strong statements on these teams prior till the end of June, because again, it's just so hard to tell right now. You just never know what you're going to get week to week, but that's part of what makes it really fun. If you were bummed out by the games this weekend, can promise you that won't happen in these PLL games. You're going to get a 1-goal game, probably multiple, but definitely one every weekend for the most part in this league, which is good. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? Any other stories across the lacrosse world before we call it a night here, buddy?
I got nothing. We did a pretty good job covering everything. It's going to be another exciting weekend of lacrosse.
All right. Well, congrats to the Princeton Tigers, all the Princeton alum out there.
What do Princeton? What is Princeton going to do? Are they going to go all get on a PJ? What do Ivy League guys do when they win the national championship?
Squash. I think they just hit isn't that what they do? The Princeton student section was rowdy. I know some of those dudes with the painted chests were ex-players, but they looked like they were having fun.
Saw a couple of PLL players up there with their shirts off. Looked like they had a couple beers.
Enjoying the bye weekend for sure. Yeah.
Shout out Bo Pedersen and Verdaro.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.